to avoid duplication, and to be unbiased. We ask the audience tonight to write your questions legibly on the index cards which you've been given, and volunteers will collect them from you. And I understand the volunteer is Paula in the green sweater, who's standing in the back.
And I'll do it too.
Okay. Let's see. The League of Women Voters of Glen Ellyn panel will review the questions submitted by the audience and carefully select questions for appropriateness and to avoid duplication. We have asked the candidates, and we also ask the audience, to please keep all campaign materials outside of this room. We have asked the candidates to agree that they will not use any voice, image, video, or other recording of the forum in their campaign for advertisement purposes. The full recording of this forum will be available on the League of Women Voters of Glen Ellyn and the League of Women Voters of Wheaton websites. And the candidates may contact the League for permission to post the candidate forum in its entirety and to post the link to the League's website. We request that the audience refrain from taking photos or videos. It is a distraction during the event and to other members of the audience. It is more conducive to a free exchange of ideas, so we respectfully request that you please listen and give your full attention to the candidates. As you can see, we do have a paid videographer who will be making a recording of tonight's forum. We are grateful to the candidates who are not only willing to serve in office, but who've agreed to come here tonight for voter education. Please show these candidates your appreciation and respect. Please do not clap, cheer, boo, applaud, or otherwise vocalize your agreement or disagreement with any question or answer. I will respond as necessary to remind everyone of this expectation. So I think we're ready to begin with opening statements. I'm reminding the candidates you have 2 minutes, and we'll begin with candidate Justin Bureau.
Thank you very much. I thank you to League of Women Voters for doing this. We need more of these to allow the voters to get to know both of us, to understand why we want to be your representative. Doing this here has an even more special meaning for me. I was born and raised around here. My dad's childhood home a block away, and our family safe is sitting out there. So for me, this means a lot because I got into this race because of community, because of family. In 2015, my best friend at the age of 30 lost his life to a terminal brain cancer, glioblastoma. Bo Biden, John McCain, Ted Kennedy all passed away from this. After that, my friends and I, we started a nonprofit. We've raised $250,000 in 5 years, and it was that time where I saw that I needed to step up and fight for the voiceless, be there for our community. Unfortunately, a year and a half after my best friend passed, my father was diagnosed with the same brain tumor. We saw a lot of the issues going through with Medicare, and that he was not able to get on it. He was a union garbage man in the city of Chicago, and at that time I met with my congressman. We wanted to get them added to the instant Medicare list, along with ALS and renal failure. That meeting didn't go so well. It was supposed to be an hour-long meeting, and it lasted 5 minutes. I walked out of that office and I said, if he's not going to do anything, I'm going to take his job. We got redistricted later, and here I am in the third because the mission hasn't changed. It's about fighting for the voiceless. It's about fighting for our community and our family, and that's why I'm sitting here today. I do not have a voting record, and I'm sure we will hear quite a bit about records today. But that doesn't mean I can't be your representative in Congress, because it is all about listening to the community, listening to the district, and bringing that and fighting for Washington. And I plan on fighting for our people, just like my family and I have done my entire career.
Okay, thank you. And now we move to candidate Ramirez for your 2-minute opening.
Thank you. Well, first, I also want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting today. I'm really grateful to be here. For me, I'm running because I want to continue to build on the work I've done here in Illinois. And some of you have heard me talk about it in the primary. This race is personal for me. I'm the daughter of immigrant parents who worked many minimum wage jobs and instilled in my family and my siblings the importance of community, service, integrity. And it's why I've spent my entire life, literally my entire life, in public service. From running a homeless shelter at the age of 21, to working at a number of community development organizations, working on policy, on voting rights, on campaign finance reform. And it's why when my community asked me to run for state representative 5 years ago, and I won, we hit the ground running. I immediately became the acting chair of child welfare. I helped expand healthcare coverage by passing legislation so that seniors, regardless of legal status, and essential workers can have access to healthcare. I made sure that the $1.5 billion in emergency housing relief went to families that need it so they can stay in their homes during the pandemic. And I helped pass one of the most historic legislations around clean energy. I'm a full-time legislator. It's been over 20 years, and I want to take that work to the federal level. We're facing many challenges. We see that from women's rights to democracy, to housing, to the economy. You can count on me being that fighter for you because it's what I've done my entire life. And I look forward to working with you as your new Congresswoman. Yes, the first Latina in the Midwest, but more importantly, someone that will connect this beautiful, diverse district.
Thank you. Okay, now we're going to move into the question and answer phase. And we're going to begin with candidate Ramirez. And the first question is, what personal or professional achievements or experiences do you feel make you uniquely qualified for this position?
You know, I started telling you in my opening statement a little bit of the work that I've done. I think who someone has been before they run for office is very telling who they're going to be when they're in office. For me, running a homeless shelter, yes, in the city of Chicago at 21 was anything but easy. But I understood that we had to get to the root cause of poverty. I understood that we had to move an organization from sheltering to helping people find permanent, stable housing, getting to the root cause of homelessness, making sure that they had access to mental health, making sure they had access to the jobs that they needed to keep permanent housing. For me, that was the bedrock of my work in the foundation. Being able to negotiate one of the most comprehensive piece of legislation at the state level that kept hundreds, thousands of people in their homes during the pandemic was also one of my proudest moments. But I have to tell you, getting letters from people saying, I wish you would have been a state legislator 3 years ago, because if you would have been in the state house, you would have passed the Medicaid expansion you did, and my father would still be alive today. He wouldn't have worked until the last day because he couldn't afford the health care he needed and the time off. That Medicaid expansion where 54,000 people have health care for the very first time in the state is one of my most proudest moments, and I'm ready to take that work to Congress.
Candidate Bureau, what personal or professional achievements or experiences do you feel make you uniquely qualified for this position?
You know, just like many of us, we go throughout our everyday lives and we work with the people that are there with us. It doesn't matter what political affiliation they are. Doesn't matter. We get the job done. Chicago has always been this, Chicago and the Chicagoland area, it's always been this area that we roll up our sleeves, we get to work no matter what is, we don't complain. And that's what I've been doing all my life. Besides my charity work, I have been in real estate since 2012, managing over 1,000 agents, and I am now VP of operations for a mortgage company. I appreciate Representative Ramirez passing the eviction ban during COVID. We needed that. But on the other side of it, I was hearing from landlords with tenants sitting here saying, well, my tenant said they're not going to pay my rent because they know they don't have to. The nice thing about being in real estate is we have a code of ethics to make sure that we are not only representing our clients, but also our company as well. And that is what I have continued to do, because it doesn't matter if you're getting paid or not. You have to do what's in the best interest of your clients. And that is no different than what a member of Congress should be doing. I am tired of seeing politicians walk in here and say one thing and they do another thing. I'm tired of politicians that continue to bend the truth and not tell the full story. We need transparency. We need honesty. And I have been doing that my entire life, and this is in the community that we live here. In the city of Chicago, I was happy when we got drawn in there because it put in a district where my dad used to work, and I've sold homes here. I've been all over to understand both sides of our district, and it's the first time that we have the similar issues with the city of Chicago. And this is what I've been fighting for in real estate, in my nonprofit work. And I want to continue to be that fighter for the voiceless, because at the end of the day, that is what a member of Congress is supposed to do. You are supposed to fight for everyone and go there. So I appreciate it.
Now we're going to the next question, and we begin with candidate 0. District 3 is a broad and diverse district. If elected, what would you do to engage with this broad audience on a regular basis?
Yeah, it is definitely a broad district. If anyone follows me on social media, I got a flat tire in Humboldt Park on Saturday. I was stuck there for about 4 hours as I waited for roadside assistance. Should have called Representative Ramirez to pick me up, maybe. And for me, this district, we are focused right now. When I am going to the doors in the suburbs, the doors in the city of Chicago, working at a food pantry in Humboldt Park, people are concerned of what's going on right now. Our crime and safety have become a major issue, and it worries them when they see my opponent being on record saying that she wants to defund the police. For me, we have to have common sense solutions to our problems here. This has the opportunity, and I do think Representative Ramirez would agree with me on this, this has the opportunity to be one of the greatest districts in the country because of our diverse communities and the changes we've even seen here in the suburbs. We have the opportunity to be a leader out there, but it's going to take someone that wants to go into Congress and work across the aisle, because bipartisanship is how we get stuff done. And that is where I believe I have the advantage. Because like I said earlier, in real estate, you work no matter what. And we need someone that is not going to go into Congress ready to pick a fight, but is ready to go in there and work across the aisle and get stuff done. Because as we've seen in our communities, we are tired of politicians that go into office and it's all about them and they refuse to work across the aisle. I have no problem standing up to my own party. If we want to sit here, and I will gladly tell you where I disagree with them. And that's what we need, because you can't expect someone to hold themselves accountable if they're not going to hold their own party accountable.
Candidate Ramirez, any questions? How do you stay engaged with this broad constituency?
For me, this district, as my opponent just mentioned, is one of the most diverse districts. Yes, it is diverse in geography, from Logan Square up to Albany Park, through Bensonville, Addison, West Chicago, Elgin, and everything in between, like Glen Ellyn, Carroll Stream, and Wheaton. But it's also a district that is diverse in socioeconomics. And it's really important to understand this. People in the most western part of this district, what I've heard them say is the same exact thing people are saying on the block that I grew up in. People want to be able to retire with dignity. They want good quality education. They want to be able to know that I'm going to fight for them every day to protect our democracy. Listening to me is the most important thing any representative could do. You can't represent someone you don't listen to, you don't visit with, and you don't intentionally make time to be able to share with. One of the first things I will do, and I've said this before in the primary, I will open up an office in West Chicago. It's really important for me to have 2 offices. This district is pretty wide. On a rainy day like this, it'll take about an hour and 45 minutes from one corner to the other. I've tried it before. So that'll be one. I think the other piece that's really important is we have to provide town halls. I do that as a state representative. It is even more critical as a member of Congress. Let's talk about clean energy. Let's talk about the economy. Let's talk about women's rights. Let's talk about a local issue on infrastructure. I'm going to also have committees like I do now, advisory committees on education, on housing, on social services, on child welfare, on economy. And the last part that I would say that's really important, you see, I come from the community. I've worked in community nonprofits for about 16 years. It is going to be really important that I partner with the neighborhood organizations from one corner to the other. I'm not going to pretend that my office will be able to provide every single service, but my office will know who is providing the service that my constituents need. And finally, I will work across the aisle the way that I have done already in Springfield, passing the state designated cultural districts bill, the first in the nation.
Next question, beginning with candidate Ramirez.
What are your personal main sources of news and how do you verify its veracity?
A very good question. Thank you for asking. You know, I use a number of sources. Certainly, I do read New York Times every single morning, and there's a number of other publications that I read just to do my Reader's Digest in the morning. Of course, like many people, I scroll down Twitter and I hear different things, and then I do my fact checking as well. And I think it's extremely important that we are watching the news, yes, we're reading things on social media, we're fact checking what we read, be the Chicago Tribune, be the Chicago Sun-Times, the New York Times, or Political. So for me, the more that we are intentional about getting our sources from different places and doing our fact checking, the better we are and more educated on what's happening. Not just here, right, but nationally in other parts of the world. So BBC and the list of other places are also really, really important for me. And in a place like Illinois, where you've had places like some of our local suburban publications allowing political groups to use their printing, their stamps to be able to share fake newspapers, that should be absolutely unacceptable. And that is something that we have to work at the federal level and at the local level to hold accountability and to make sure that we're not spreading lies, but that they are truly a beacon of facts and informing those facts.
Candidate Bureau, what are your news sources and how do you fact check?
Yeah, it's, as you said, it's unique out there. I don't watch mainstream media. Ever since getting into the race as well, we've turned off a lot of it because to me it's white noise. I get my information that comes from The Hill, directly from there. I also watch our local broadcast because for me, NBC, ABC, our local affiliates, they do a good job of giving us the information. For me, it's always been about, I want to know what the facts are and let me make my opinion for myself. I 100% agree that there is a lot of misinformation that goes out there, but it's not the government's job to censor speech. That is very, very scary. We had the UN the other day sit here and say, well, we control the COVID information now. And climate change. To sit here and hear the UN and even the Biden administration earlier on saying that they were censoring Facebook speech, we can't do that. We need to allow everyone to have their voice. But we, as politicians, as leaders, need to make sure that we are putting out the right facts. We need to make sure we are educating our voters, giving them the opportunity to go look this information as well. My mom's in the back of the room, and I remember when Facebook still come up, and she gives me some information. I'm like, where did you hear this from? We need to make sure we are doing a better job, but the government censoring speech, absolutely not. We need to rely on our local sources, and for me, I want to see the media completely get out of these opinion pieces. Give us the facts. If you want to make this an opinion piece, they need to label it. As we see on both sides of the aisle, everyone tries to go for that catchy tagline just to get subscribes, try to get retweets. We can't do that anymore. We have to be direct with our subject line rather than just trying to get people to click on an article because these people are getting paid off of it.
And next question, beginning with Candidate Bureau, and this one has to do with elections. So what measures do you support to improve and secure elections and voting access in our country?
I do believe that at the end of the day, our voting rights should be determined by our states. I don't think, and our Constitution says as well, elections should not be federalized. When I see bills like H.R. 1 go through where it bans voter ID across the country, it sets a federal map drawing process where they'd be doing that on the federal level here. Here in Illinois, we've been asking for fair maps here for the last decade, and for some reason, we haven't gotten it. I wish the Democrat majority in Springfield would have followed through on their promises from the 2018 elections. We do have to make sure that our elections are secure, they are safe, and that they are expanding to everyone. I've sat here and I've said, you know what? I don't want to win on a low voter turnout. I want record high turnout because that's what gets people involved. I was talking with someone earlier, and we need more young people to get out and vote. We need people to get excited about these elections because this is our greatest right as Americans. We have our constitutional right to vote, and we get a say on who our leaders are going to be. So we need to make sure that we are giving better access here in DuPage County, where you can vote anywhere in the county. Love that idea. It opened it up for so many people rather than having to leave work to go to their precinct. We need to have more of that. But that is a state issue. That is not something that our Congress, our Senate should be doing. We need to make sure that states have the control, and that's what I want to do. I want to bring more power to the states because at the end of the day, that's where you get your biggest voice. You get your voice with your committee person. You get your voice with your state rep, with your state senator, with your school board. We need to make sure that these important decisions, because that's what makes America great, is we are completely different. Not every single state is the same. So to sit here and pass legislation on the federal level that bans voter ID when 75% agree with it, we can't do that.
Okay. Candidate Ramirez, what do you have to say about secure elections and voting access?
I think if we're going to be expanding voting access, and if we want young people, all people to be able to vote in Illinois, in Kentucky, in Texas, in Georgia, in Florida, and all over the country, we do need to pass the John Lewis Act, and we need to pass that immediately. Leaving things state by state, for us women, has left 17 states without women having the right to choose over their body. Leaving things to state allows places like Georgia to identify ways to blatantly not allow Black people to vote. That is a problem. So for me, quite frankly, what we need to be doing is at the federal level, passing legislation that makes it possible for people to have access to the ballot. That is how we're going to see young people and all people voting. We have to be able to increase the transparency. And I also believe that we need same-day registration and automatic voter registration like we did here, and I helped pass. And I know that's allowed some people to be able to vote on election day here because we passed same-day registration. So we need that at the federal level, and we also need to be able to work on campaign finance reform because our democracy is also being threatened by the corporations that attempt to co-opt our legislative process.
One more
Am I able
election.
to expand off of that, or?
Not yet,
Got it.
but there is another election question coming, so maybe you
Thank you.
So this one is beginning with candidate Ramirez. Do you believe the 2020 election results were valid, and what led you to that conclusion?
I absolutely believe that the 2020 election was valid. And what led me to that conclusion is the numbers. It was clear. The election wasn't stolen. Some people choose to refuse the outcome because they don't like the outcome. Some people choose tyranny and insurrection because they didn't accept the outcome. But in 2016, we accepted the outcome. In 2020, we should have also accepted the outcome. It is really unfortunate, and it's been front and clear a threat to our democracy when we allow this big lie, this idea of this big lie that the election was stolen, to continue to, in many ways, suppress people from voting because they're not trusting the voting process because someone refuses to accept the results of the election.
Candidate Bureau, same question.
Yeah, I accept the elections. I've said it multiple times. I've said it from day one. I believe Joe Biden is our president. For me, I'm a constitutionalist. And if anything like that was going to go forward, it had to go through it the right way, as our founding fathers intended it to. We have these systems in place already to prevent a overthrowing and a taking over our government. For me, to hear that in 2016 they accepted the election results, they didn't. 7 Democrats objected to 9 states in 2016. Yet, if a Republican talks about objecting, they're automatically criticized as a election denier. And in 2004, 31 members objected to the 2004 election. So I have no problem when someone objects to election. That is their right as a congressman, because what that does is for a debate. That triggers a debate for them to talk about things that happened in that election. So yeah, do I agree with the people that are out there saying that the election was stolen? Show me more evidence. I do have a problem when I hear immediately trying to shoot anyone down if they want to have a conversation about it. We can't do that. There were some things that happened for the first time in history, and they are here to stay. Mail-in ballots. We want to talk about those things, and I'm not going to sit here and say, oh yeah, every single mail-in ballot is fraud. No, I'm not going to. But why can't we have a conversation about it? And the problem I have with politicians right now is none of them want to have that hard conversation. For me, I will go up, I will have a conversation with anyone. I don't care if you disagree with me or not. Let's have it, because at the end of the day, I'm going to learn from you. Hopefully you learn from me, and we're going to have compromise about it. So yeah, on both sides of the aisle, I think they all need to cut it out, because we need to move forward. And that's what I've done ever since that awful day in January, that happened. I have moved forward, and I'm ready to continue to fight and do things in Congress rather than worrying about what's happened in the previous election.
Next question, and beginning with candidate Bureau. This one's on gun violence. Please explain why you do or do not support changing the laws to limit the availability of semi-automatic weapons. And please explain why you do or do not support expanding background checks for gun purchasers.
Yeah, Representative Ramirez and I, in our last debates, we were both in the same parade. We were here in Glen Ellyn, actually, when I think we were actually just leaving Wheaton to come to Glen Ellyn, or at least that's where I was at when we heard the news. I got a text from our a friend going, are you guys all right? I'm like, yeah, what's going on? To see what happened up in Highland Park. We do have a gun problem. Let's be real here. We have a gun problem, but let's look at state of Illinois, where we have some of the most strict gun laws, and we still have the highest crime violence here. So just sitting here and banning guns, is that necessarily going to solve the issue? No. Why aren't we enforcing the laws that we already have in place? That's what we need to be doing. I do believe in universal background checks. I know it's not popular with some, but I have no problem with that. I believe right now there's about 35 states that have universal background checks. If we want to do that on the federal level, absolutely. And as another point that my opponent and I agree on, although trying to define a assault weapon and a AR-15, an AR-15 is a brand of gun. This isn't a military grade style weapon, how you're going to hear from people. If you give these guns that are being involved in these shootings, if you give them to someone in the military, they're going to laugh at it, because those aren't what they use. If we want to raise the assault weapon, depending on the language that is in that bill, if we want to raise the age to 21, I'm in favor. But as my opponent talks about, when we're talking about crime and defunding the police, that it's a mental health issue. How is the violence that we're having right now not a mental health issue? We need to be taking care. The League of Women Voters, you had your safety forum at Hadley a couple weeks ago. The speaker in there did a phenomenal job of breaking it down, saying, let's look for the signs in these kids. We need people to speak up. And we need to be doing that as legislators and leaders, of making sure that people will speak up when they see these things. It doesn't matter if you're going to feel embarrassed or whatnot. You may lose a friend for a day, but you're going to save lives.
Now, candidate Ramirez, same question.
I don't think that you can achieve public safety with one action. I think that you need a comprehensive approach to get to the root cause of violence. And yes, I will tell you that I'm a co-sponsor on banning assault weapons in Illinois, and I will be a co-sponsor the moment I get to Congress to also ban assault weapons at the federal level. I also think that we need a universal background check. What happened at that parade, what happened to those families in Highland Park, should never have happened. What happened in Uvalde should never have happened. And we absolutely need to invest in mental health. We should be making sure that we're looking at the signs, and that AR-15s or any military style weapon is not just given because you go to the store, as we saw in Uvalde, or as we saw what happened here. And so for me, investing in a comprehensive approach, it means investing in mental health. It means investing in after-school programs. It also means investing in more counselors and clinical social workers in the elementary schools as well as the high schools. There's a lot that is happening with our young people. 2 years of a pandemic. What happened at home? What didn't happen at home? We have to make sure we're investing in the root cause, and that means taking that comprehensive approach. I've done so at the state level. We just passed legislation to put $200 million into mental health after-school programs and gang intervention and a number of other programs that we need to make sure it gets released as quickly as possible. We need to do more of that at the federal level as well.
Now switching topics to immigration, again, beginning with candidate Ramirez. Do you think immigration reform is needed? If not, why not? If so, what steps do you think should be taken to reform our immigration system?
Some of you heard me talk about this. It's personal for me. I have family who've lived in this country for 35 years and unfortunately still don't have a pathway to citizenship. That same uncle has put 4 boys through college by working at a diner 70 hours a week and living in the shadows in fear that ICE will one day show up to that diner and deport him, despite of the $30,000, $40,000 that he has spent attempting to become a legal permanent resident in this country. I think we need a comprehensive immigration reform package. We've been talking about it for a very long time on both sides, and we haven't reached it. There are 11 million people living in the shadows in this country right now, and it is time for them to come out of the shadows into the economy. Many of them are entrepreneurs. They don't want to live illegal, as we call it. They want to be able to be a permanent resident. And I think that as we're working on an immigration reform package, we have to be looking at those backlogs and fees. It takes you 2-3 years to get an appointment, and then another 5 years for another appointment. There are things that we could be doing right now as part of that package to be able to move us one step closer to be able to have comprehensive immigration reform. Let me end by saying I am the proud wife of a DACA recipient, someone that's been here since the age of 14, and I believe that it is time for them to not have to live waiting to see if the next year they'll renew their DACA. They need a pathway to citizenship. He deserves it, and so does every DACA recipient in this state and country.
Candidate Bureau, your thoughts on immigration reform?
I agree immigration is an issue. This is something we agree on, and I'll say this, as soon as I'm sworn in Congress, I will gladly help Delia's husband get through with DACA. But we need to make sure that these people are getting through with DACA that have actually completed the qualifications. Only 40% of them have actually met the qualifications to pass through. But we continue to hear that we need to just allow every single person enrolled as a dreamer to become a legal citizen. I disagree with that. What is that teaching our kids? What is that teaching other immigrants as well? Is you can come here, you don't have to do the entire process, but don't worry, we'll let you go anyways. None of the immigration reform starts without securing our border first. I know this can be a testy topic, but we need to make sure our border is secure. I will never sit here and say that the people that are coming through, that all of them are bad people, but one is too many. For me, we have to make sure that we're protecting our U.S. citizens first. That's what our job is as U.S. Congress, to look out for our constituents, our citizens. We need to make sure that we are doing a better job with immigration. As Representative Ramirez said, the fees. But a lot of things that never get brought up with this is a lot of the fees actually get waived with low income. But we need to make it more affordable. We need to streamline the process. She brought up backlog. I am a big tech person. We need to get our U.S. government better with this and free up our court system. For me, I want to make sure that we are helping the people that deserve to be here. I met someone last week. His name was Cesar. He went from Cuba, made a documentary. He was threatened by the government, so then he went to Colombia. Then he made another documentary about the socialist government there. walked through 7 countries to get here with his wife. I feel for that person. My sister-in-law came here from Germany. I've heard the immigration process and how hard it can be. We need to simplify the process, but we need to make sure that our border is secure first before doing anything.
Next question, and the topic is reproductive rights, and we begin with candidate 0. Should there be a federal law to guarantee the right of the individual to make reproductive choices? And what is your position on a national abortion ban?
I am pro-life, but I do believe in a woman's right to choose. Just as I do with anything, with vaccine mandates, that's someone's right to choose. I will always sit here and support a woman's right to choose, and I know that's not going to be popular with some of my own party. That's fine. Like I said, I'm willing to sit here and I will disagree, and we will have those conversations. But what I hear from people that are making this their #1 issue and their only issue, people are worried and see what we have in Illinois here, where we have removed parental notification so a 13-year-old can get an abortion without their parents ever knowing. The ramifications of that are terrifying. We have talked about full-term abortions, and these are, to me, that's ludicrous. Now, I will never understand what a woman is going through during that time, and I do not support a federal ban on abortion. To me, this is, and as the Supreme Court has said, that this is a state issue or a Supreme Court issue. And for me, like I said earlier, I'm willing to sit here and have those hard conversations and disagree. If my party if Lindsey Graham wants to propose an abortion ban in Congress, I will gladly speak up against it because I'm a constitutionalist. I believe in following the Constitution. We need to make sure, once again, we are giving the power to the states. I would love to see, if they wanted to, and since this is a hot topic and we talk about letting the people have their voice, why don't we bring it up to a referendum here in Illinois? I love seeing that in other states where they had a referendum on their election here to let the people decide. So as we continue to hear that politicians shouldn't choose what goes into someone's body or what someone does with their body, so let the people choose. And that's what we are doing that's what I am doing as a Republican, allowing people on the state level to make that decision for themselves.
Candidate Ramirez, your thoughts on reproductive?
I mean, let's just be honest. There are 2 of us here. I am the one whose rights are now being restricted. And if I lived in another state in the Midwest and I had a miscarriage, as I've had in the past, and I needed to go to the doctor, even that miscarriage would be a problem. When you leave things to the state, you're leaving that to government in the same way that you are at the federal level. I know that because I helped codify Roe v. Wade in the state of Illinois in 2019. And that is why in this moment, after what happened with the Supreme Court, women, people, reproductive rights are protected in the state. But that's not the case for 17 other states. And that number continues to grow. Why? Because there is an attack on women, state by state by state. And I recall very clearly on the day, on that long day, that we passed the Reproductive Rights Act bill here in the state of Illinois, that a number of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, the majority of them, said, no, we don't support women having the right over their body. So we vote no. So I believe that we need to codify Roe v. Wade at the federal level. And I believe that it is a woman's right to choose over her body at all times. You've never had to make that choice. How is it that you get to make a decision over my body, over the body of my future daughter? So for me, this is personal, as you could imagine, as it is for many of us. We have to move forward in equity for women, not backwards. What happened in June moved us backwards, and it's frightening. And for some, it's life or death.
Okay, next question deals with the economy. So, Candidate Ramirez, do you believe Congress has a role to play in addressing inflation? If so, what steps do you believe Congress should take to minimize the impact?
I do. I think that it is the responsibility of our government to ensure that we pass the necessary policy to allow for people to be able to have quality of life. And look, not investing in the infrastructure, not investing in businesses during the pandemic, not helping people when they're starving and not able to work, or essential worker not working 20 hours during the pandemic, not doing the work that we did during the pandemic would have meant that in the state of Illinois, thousands of people would be in the streets. And I dare to believe that not just in Chicago, but all across the state and all across this district through DuPage. So I believe that we have a role in addressing the inflation. And I think it is our responsibility to make sure that we're investing in our communities, that we are promoting and providing grants for cutting edge technology, that we're helping small businesses strengthen so that they can hire locally. All of that is extremely important. And oftentimes we say we'll leave it to the states to do, but we also understand that there is federal ramifications when it comes to inflation and when it comes to the economy.
Candidate Bureau.
Yeah, I also agree. COVID destroyed our small businesses. That's why, I mean, aren't we still under an emergency order from our governor here? And I would have wished that Representative Ramirez would have stepped up in Springfield and ended these lockdowns that destroyed our small businesses and families. I've been working with small businesses my entire life, and they are the heartbeat. They are our economy here. We see giant retail stores leave our towns here, and the stores sit empty for decades. Small businesses are what drive our communities. Look at what's going on in downtown Glen Ellyn. Look at what's going on in Wheaton, and look what's going on in Humboldt Park in the heart of the Chicago area. I have continued to be a fighter for small business, and my people that I talk with are worried about the voting record of my opponent. With the National Federation of Independent Business, the largest small business organization in the entire country, her report card in Springfield in 2019 was 0%. From 21 to 2022 was 33%. So if we want to talk about the economy and who's going to do a better job at fighting for our small businesses, I'm the candidate for it. We have to stop the outrageous spending that is going on in DC. I agree, infrastructure is a major problem, but politicians are so puzzled when us as citizens sit here and go, well, where's our IPAS money going? Isn't that paying for our infrastructure? What are we doing with this money? Property taxes in the city of Chicago are outrageous. Why aren't we fixing the roads? Why haven't we been doing that? We need to take care, but the problem is so many of these bills, they just throw everything in there that has nothing to do. So there are Republicans that will not vote for these bills because of the language that's in there and everything that gets wrapped up into one. If we want to do a standalone package on infrastructure, let's do it, and I'll be the first one to sign on board with it.
Candidate Bureau, now we're changing to climate change. Do you accept climate change as a real problem? And if so, what actions need to be taken to address it?
Absolutely. If anyone says that it's not, I will point that it is changing. Now, our Earth has been changing forever. At one point, we were one continent. Climate change happens. I am terrified to hear my opponent, the people that have endorsed her, Bernie Sanders, AOC, of trying to, the squad, banning all fossil fuels that are coming out here. We can't do that. We aren't in a position. We look at Texas, where both sides, in my opinion, were wrong. One side is sitting here saying, well, wind and solar, they're what caused this, the electrical shutdown last year. On the other side, they're saying, well, no, we need to produce it more. Let's start talking about fracking. It gets so wrapped up and just all fossil fuels are bad now. But fracking is one of the cleanest things that we have to produce the oil and the resources that we need. It produces a net, it's incredibly clean, and it's led to a net reduction of greenhouse gases. So you know what? I want to push for more permits that are getting put out there. We need to become energy efficient and independent. We need to be looking at nuclear energy, which my opponent will agree with me on that. We need to get better here, but just sitting here and trying to ban everything right off the bat, that's not going to fix anything. That's why our gas is so high. Right before I was coming here, I was watching the news, and OPEC said, you better go get your gas today because gas prices are going up tomorrow. And that is worrying everyone. And if we continue to elect the far left in there that wants to just ban everything without already having an alternative solution, we're going to be in this mess for quite a while.
Candidate Ramirez Clement.
Thank you. I can say it loud and clear. Climate change is one of the biggest crises in our lifetime. Not just maybe, I think. It is going to impact every one of us. It already is, and the generations to come. And for me, getting to clean energy, like we did with the Clean Energy Jobs Act legislation that we passed here in the state of Illinois, we didn't say we're going to get to clean energy by 2024, 2025. We put together a plan to get to clean, 100% clean energy by 2045. Why? Because we need to do the work and the transition period in order to get there. For me, at the federal level, we should be working every single day to get to clean energy. And that is not at the expense of the workers. That is not at the expense of gasoline prices. Actually, if we were able to spend more in electric vehicles and incentivize for people to be able to have that, they would not have to do and spend what they're spending. We have to invest in the green economy. This district is what, 2 blocks from the airport. We almost had it, but we don't have it. But we have the parking lot. We also have a lot of logistics jobs in this district. Investing in infrastructure is investing in the climate, in our environment. It's why he may have forgot to mention, Sierra Club has endorsed me. So has all of the environment groups in the state and at the national level. We have to take care of our climate if we want to care about our future.
Candidate Ramirez, we're going to switch to healthcare. What should our country do over the long term to ensure quality healthcare that is accessible and affordable for all?
For those of you that know me, you know I talk about healthcare a lot. My mother is diabetic. My mother's in her 60s. She's a home healthcare worker. And because she makes minimum wage, my mother can't afford healthcare through the agency she works for. She's on Medicaid. And if she worked a couple of more hours, maybe she'd be able to get healthcare through the agency. But those copays that cost every time she visits, and the cost to her diabetes medication, the insulin, would make it impossible for her to afford and put her life at risk. For me, we have to make healthcare affordable and accessible, and it should not compromise quality. No one should have to worry that if they work 1 more hour, they won't be eligible for Medicaid because paying $580 out of her paycheck every single month so her agency gets her less healthcare. I think that what we have to do is what we've done some of that here at the state level. Expand healthcare coverage. The way that I was able to expand healthcare coverage here, it actually is saving the state of Illinois millions of dollars when people are able to get preventive healthcare and not wait until they have to go into an emergency room. I also think that we have to be able to lower the prescription cost. We should be able to negotiate to lower those costs. No one should have to pay $600, $700. How could someone vote no to make insulin affordable? And yet you saw that at the federal level. It's almost like one side doesn't get diabetes and the others do. I think we are all prone to getting diabetes. So I think that we need to expand healthcare coverage. I think that we need to lower the age for Medicare. I think that we have to negotiate the price down, and we have to move to a system that provides healthcare coverage that is quality and accessible. And I will say it, I do believe we need to move to Medicare for all.
Candidate Bureau, how do we make healthcare accessible and affordable?
Yeah, like I said at the beginning, I got into this for healthcare. Watching my dad go through what he was doing and being told that now him and my mother have to pay for COBRA insurance because after not working in the union for 6 months, he was let go, which rejected him from getting access to treatments. That's when I decided to step up. Absolutely agree that prescription drugs are a problem right now. It was one reason why former President Trump actually signed a bill that it was sad to see President Biden reverse it as soon as he got into office. I also have a problem with Medicare for all because 87% of people are on private insurance right now. Private insurance, many of us love our private insurance, but we are tired with our co-pays, our prescription drugs. Much of the legislation that you see in Congress right now does not allow other companies, anyone to negotiate drug prices. 99% of the lower prescription drug bills that are introduced in Congress are only to help out Medicare. I agree, we need that as well, but what does that do for the 87% out there? Medicare for all does not solve one thing, and I'm sorry, I don't want the federal government running our insurance. Are we going to then require mandates, vaccine mandates? There's other countries that have Medicare for all where they've actually limited the type of procedures that you can get. We can't have that. The Affordable Care Act raised our premiums 60%, but the best thing that came out of it was pre-existing injuries. We need to make sure we are still going to protect pre-existing injuries, but we need more competition. After the Affordable Care Act went into place, we lost a majority of our companies that are our insurance providers. 16 to 25% of the government's cost goes towards health care. We have to figure out a better way, but it's competition. We can't just let one group sit here and control the prices. In the United States, we pay more because they know we can pay more. Other countries pay less for the same drugs. We need to make sure that all insurance companies, all providers are allowed those same affordable access to drugs that the government would be with these bills.
We have time for one last question, and then we're going to move on to closing statements. This one has to do with campaign finance reform. Let's start with Candidate Bureau. Do you believe there is a need for campaign finance reform? And if so, what changes should be made?
You know, I'm my own campaign treasurer. I don't have a large staff. I've had to actually learn our campaign finance laws. So I can sit here and talk about it with confidence. I actually think our federal campaign finance laws make a heck of a lot more sense than what we have here in Illinois. It is shocking to me. If you actually read through what we have on there, on the federal level, it makes sense. My opponent continues to talk about how she hasn't taken any corporate PAC money, anything. 80% of her campaign donations are from large donations or PACs. 24% are coming from PACs. That's where I have a problem with. That is what can get into this mess, because that's dirty, dark money that we don't get to see. If we wanted to sit here and make super PACs where they have to be more open and they have to disclose more, absolutely, let's get on board with it. But for me, I continue to hear talking about campaign finance reform when Republicans aren't really getting money right now. And for me, I want to make sure that these people are getting a chance with it. The H.R. 1 of giving taxpayer money for campaigns, even as someone that's underfunded, I've got a serious issue with that. We should never be using taxpayer dollars to fund someone's campaign. That's just a joke to me. Our taxes are already high enough. So if we want to talk about actual campaign finance reform, yes, let's talk about super PACs. Let's talk about all that dirty money that goes into it. We have a billionaire governor right now that keeps throwing $100 million into his election. So, I mean, can we start at home first before we start changing everything on the federal level?
Campaign finance.
I want to talk to you about solutions. I think oftentimes you hear people talk about the things that they don't like, but they don't get to the solutions. Look, we live in a country where if you can self-fund, you can run for president, you can run for Congress, you can run for state representative, you can run for city council, and in Chicago spend $500,000 in that election. And oftentimes, you only hear from that person that can self-fund or get these corporations who are able to fund them. And then you ask yourself, why is it that we haven't been able to expand healthcare coverage? Or why is it that we have issues on moving legislation that impacts us every single day? We need to repeal Citizens United. We need to end it. And I can say it. He may not believe that, but I believe we need to end Citizens United. That as long as money can influence a member of Congress's decision on legislation, which being a legislator, I hear people talk and I'm like, how can you possibly do this? How is it that one pharmaceutical company can spend billions of dollars in lobbying at the federal level and get away with it until we level the playing field. And Common Cause talks about it. I actually worked for them. And we talked about campaign finance reform. Like, no one should have to have all that money to control the commercials, to control the mail, to control everything, until we're able to end Citizens United, establish a campaign finance reform program, and yes, look at small donor match programs. Look, if I'm knocking on your door and you believe that I am the person who's going to represent you and you want to give me $25, $50, and there's a match program that allows for you to focus on the district, that actually makes it possible for your qualified person to represent you in Congress or at the local level. Finally, we talked a little bit about records. I have a 100% labor record. That means that labor unions did support me. So did Indivisible and Citizens United and a number of community groups that want to protect our neighborhoods. That is who represents me.
Great. And again, I thank the candidates for their candid answers to and adherence to our timer. So thank you for that. Now we move into our closing statements. Reminder, you have 2 minutes, and we're going to begin with candidate Ramirez.
We're in a brand new district. We've talked about it. Some of you have probably nicknamed the shape of the district. I've heard a couple, and I don't want to lose time, so I won't go through those names.
You guys have that.
This is an opportunity for us to elect a unifier, a coalition builder, someone that is going to represent you, because representing you is representing their mom, their dad, their niece, or someone they've worked with. You have the opportunity to elect someone with a voting record that shows you my stance on women's rights, on the environment, on worker rights, on healthcare, on housing. You have the opportunity to have someone who will be intentional about connecting the city with Warrenville and Winfield and Bartlett and West Chicago. And many of you have seen me up and down this district. I am passionate about community and connecting people. This is an opportunity for the brand new 3rd Congressional District to make a choice. Who do you want to represent you in Congress? Someone that has a record on this work, someone that has concrete solutions and has done the work previously, someone that has spent her life since the age of 17 helping others, or someone that's telling you that I've done something here, so I'm going to do more there. I am someone that has passed legislation like establishing state designated cultural districts, the first in the country to boost community development, economic development, and I did it with the Republican leader in the state house. We need leaders who are unapologetic, who will fight for you, not for corporations. It's who I am, who I will be, and continue to be. So I hope that I can earn your support, and I hope that you can help elect more women, and certainly the first Latina from the Midwest to Congress.
Candidate Bureau, your closing statement.
This isn't about if you're Republican or Democrat. We heard quite a bit just here of how Representative Ramirez is a unifier. 244 of her bills that she has co-sponsored, only 4 of them are from Republicans, less than 1%. Doesn't necessarily scream unify. 42 bills that she's introduced, only 7 of them have bipartisanship. And Tim Butler, I believe, is that who you're speaking with about the leadership? Either way, yeah. So, Tom, sorry. But I have talked to some people. Representative Ramirez, she has done a great job on housing, and I can do that same job. We need to be looking at the facts. If we want to talk about voting records, absolutely. Please Google and go see the voting records so you can see the same things I'm talking about. Co-sponsor of the Safety Act, decriminalizing fentanyl, heroin, meth, cocaine, where the amount of fentanyl that Representative Ramirez voted to make legal can kill up to 1,500 people. That is terrifying, especially when we have an opioid crisis and 290 being called the heroin highway. So yes, I don't have a voting record, but what are we sitting here telling anyone that believes in government and believes in people and community that you can't run for Congress because you don't have a voting record? If you go look at my campaign slogan, it says the next generation is now. It is because I want to issue in this new generation of people, politicians, Republicans, where we can sit here and care about these same issues. We just have a different way of getting there and solving them. But it's about compromise. It's about working with each other. And as I've said, I've done this in our communities. I believe in the city of Chicago. I love the city of Chicago. It is about someone that's going to be able to connect with both of them. And I can do that because I can connect with anyone. I've always enjoyed talking with a janitor or a CEO of a company. I can connect with these people, and that's what we need. We need someone that is going to hold parties accountable, hold people accountable, rather than just sitting back and doing whatever that you want to do. So on November 8th, I ask for your vote because we need the next generation in Congress. Thank you very much.
And on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Glen Ellyn and Wheaton, I want to thank the candidates for their participation and you, our audience, for your civic engagement. You can go to leagueofwomenvotersge.org for the recording of tonight's U.S. Congressional District 3 Candidate Forum. And please encourage your neighbors to watch it as well. Good luck to the candidates and good evening to everyone.
Thank you.